Hi, this is Anna from Post Me a Book. This is going to be a very quick clip, and it's just to, not review, but just to do a quick summary of the books. The two of the books that I've read that were on my TBR list. And those two books were Dread Nation by Justina Ireland, and the other one was Other Birds, a novel by Sarah Addison Allen, a New York Times best-selling author. To start off with this one, as I said, this one I'm not really going to actually do a summary of, because as I said in my last clip, Sade from Coffee Bookshelves, I think it's called, I keep forgetting. I'll double check that again. Anyway, so she's the one who did that fantastic review. So if anyone wants to listen to that one, I will put another link in this clip, but I also put it in the last clip also. Good book. Just to say what I thought of it, because now I finished it. It was actually a good book. I've got to still say that I totally enjoyed this book. The girl who's on the cover, I guess she's supposed to be the heroine. Her name is, because I've actually forgotten what her name is, Jane McKeene. She's a badass throughout the entire book. And as I said in the other clip, she really doesn't make herself a victim in any way at all. So that is also very refreshing, that she just gets on with her life. But that one, very good book. It is I'm guessing it's a young adult's book, but I totally enjoyed it. So there you go. That's that one. The next book, Other Birds, a novel by Sarah Addison Allen. This one was different. It's a much slower pace, that's for sure. It's a much slower pace than Dread Nation. And it's a slow drama. It's about different characters. The main character, if we can even call her that, let's say it starts with Zoe's story. And even then we don't get to know so much about Zoe's story, but she's the person who's first introduced in this book. And she's a girl who's going to be 19 years old, and she's moving away from her father and her stepmother to return to an island. Or is it an island? Is it just called Mallow Island? Where she lived once upon a time with her dad and her mother, but her mother has now died. Her real mother has now died. Or died a long time ago, actually. Now, Zoe's story is that she's not very happy where she's living with her dad and her stepmom, so she was ready to leave, and now that she's come of age, she's actually got to know that her mother had left her condo on this Mallow Island. So that's where she then moves to. And when she moves to Mallow Island, she starts making friends with the other people who live in the condo. And this book is about the connections between all these people. There's Zoe, there is Charlotte, there is Mac, Oliver, who isn't on the island just at the time. He moved away a long time ago. There's Lisbeth, and there's Lucy. And the book takes up each one of their stories, apart from Lucy's perhaps. Oh, and there's Fraser also. Also main character Fraser. The book takes up the stories of each one of these people. All of them have secrets that they don't want to share with others to begin with. And they don't really know each other until Zoe actually comes to the island and starts building a connection between all of them. And that's how this story unwinds. The other interesting thing about this book is that, for example, Zoe has an imaginary pigeon, which she's had for many, many years. And this imaginary pigeon has been moving around with her. An imaginary pigeon followed her to the island. And somewhere along the line, Fraser also feels this pigeon. And for Zoe, no one else has ever believed her about this pigeon. So she's surprised when she sees Fraser make a motion as when Pigeon, who's called Pigeon, flies near him. And then he just kind of does this. And she thinks, no one else has ever done that. But Fraser doesn't say anything about this. He just does that. So we then move on from that. Charlotte is 26 and she has just lost a job. Mac is probably around the same age as Charlotte, or a little bit older, and he works in a restaurant, and he's been on the island for a very long time, and he has his own story. Charlotte has her own story and her own secrets. And then there's Lisbeth, who is Oliver's mother. And she's a woman who has such bad grief. She just always gives grief to everybody. And she's always complaining. That's what Zoe found anyway, and that's what people told us. She's always complaining. There's people not allowed to have fun because she'll complain about it. They're not allowed to make noise because she'll complain about this. So she's no bundle of joy, quite simply. Then somewhere in the beginning of the story, Lisbeth gets murdered. When I first picked up this book, I thought it was going to be a story about who done it. And this is because Zoe was also trying to work out at the beginning who had actually done it. She kept saying it was Lucy, because Lucy is Lisbeth's sister, and nobody ever really sees Lucy. She keeps to herself, occasionally comes out at night and smokes a cigarette, and Zoe thought that she had seen her the first night smoking a cigarette. That's why Zoe starts thinking it's Lucy who's killed Lisbeth. So Zoe has her own ideas of what's happening, and she's trying to find out who killed Lisbeth. And that's also partly in the story, but it's actually not the main part of the story. The main part of this book is how these people connect with each other. Oliver, who is not on the island at the beginning of the book, returns because he finds out that Lisbeth, who was his mother, has left him the condo. And Oliver actually didn't have anywhere to stay. So then he decides to move back to Malu Island. So to summarize this book, it does tell the stories about all these characters, starting from Zoe and how she manages to connect them together. It is a slow burn, this book, slow dramas, but it does have very good twists. I'll say that much for it. And even by saying that, it actually gives nothing away, because most books have twists. But they did have good twists. So even if it is a slow burn, and I did have to put it down and pick it up and read a bit more, put it down and read a bit more. I think that was just because at times I wasn't really in the mood for reading this book. But then when I start reading it, picking up and reading it, I did find I had to keep reading more. And then I put it down again, and then I read it. So that's how I got through this book. It's not a very long book, actually. I think all in all, I would say this book is worth reading. It is a slow burn, but worth reading absolutely, because the author, she captures, what would I say? She doesn't give away a lot about the people. It's not that we go very in depth with each character, but it's enough to make you interested in the book, which I guess is actually quite good, because without actually going so in depth into the characters or building up such a big story around each character, she nonetheless manages to make this book worth reading. So that's actually a positive. I hadn't thought about that one, but yep. So there, I say read this book, because it is worth reading. Slow burn, but worth reading. And those were the two books. I will now say that just now I am reading Nadine Gordimer's The House Gun. And that one's also a bit different. I wasn't quite expecting that, or perhaps I was. I think I'd read the blurb, and I knew it was about someone who had shot, a young person who had shot either his best friend or someone that he knew. More than that, I don't know. And that's what it seems to be about. It's the young man who shot one of his housemates. Well, the beginning of the book anyway is about the parents and how they're reacting to their sons being in custody for murder. More than that, I don't know. So that's the one that I'm reading now. I'll actually show you that one. That's the one. Nadine, Gordimer, The House Gun. So that's the one I'm reading now. I'm reading several books just now, actually. I did start Elly Griffiths, Crossing Places. There was someone I watched on YouTube who actually said she was reading one of Elly Griffiths' books. This is the Ruth Galloway Mystery. And this one, I think it's actually a nice book to read because it's nice and easy to read. The pages, I like these kind of pages, actually. The cover is nice. And I must admit, I do prefer paperbacks much, much more than hardbacks, although I see that hardbacks for some reason now are more expensive. So anyway, yep. So I'm reading this book just now. I'm still reading The Goddess of Mtwara, story by story. And I've just read one which is called The Birds Flew Away. Oh, Her Birds Flew Away. Let's see. The story of the girl whose birds flew away. Interesting thing about that story is that I really did not get what it was about. For the life of me, I don't understand what that story is about. But you see, the thing about some short stories, I don't feel I always need to understand them. It's a bit like poems. You don't always get what the poet is writing, or what they want you to understand. But sometimes you get a feel of it, and sometimes you don't. But that's okay. So I was all right with that story that I have not got a clue. It just ended, and I thought, okay, still don't know what it was about, but that's fine. I can read another one and see if I get it. So I'm still getting through that one. And the third book that I'm reading at the same time, yeah, the cover is not exactly the best, but this one is called Amin and the Tragedy of Uganda. And this is written by Semakula Kiwanuka. And this one is it's a history about the time of Amin in Uganda. I haven't got very far in this one, but it's actually an interesting book. So I'm definitely going to finish this one for sure. It's a history that I feel I should read and know a bit more about. So, and it is easy to read. It's educational. It's easy to read. It's about Amin in Uganda, and it's educational. So those are the 3 books I'm reading, or the 4 actually that I'm reading just now. And that was that. It wasn't quite as short as I thought it would be, but now I'm done. Until next time, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.